So I'm going to just talk from the top of my head. I was listening to this guy this morning. I really appreciate that he goes through the Bible kind of like verse by verse and explains it. He doesn't give his experience too much. He's more deep into the Bible, which I really appreciate. I also appreciate when people give their experience. The best thing I can think of is when somebody gives their testimony of Christ and what they did for them. Anyhow, I was listening to this guy, and as I'm listening, I'm thinking, gosh, he's repeating these ideas like this one right here, restoration and renewal. And then you look up here at the top, no scenario is beyond God's ability to restore. So for the last 25 years, I've been asking this one question. Where is the salvation plan for Lucifer or Satan or the adversary? And God has been slowly giving me all sorts of backup scriptures and scenarios. And, this is incredible right here, the amount of information just on this one page. So no scenario is beyond God's ability to restore. Well, he's made the ability for us to be restored. But if you don't want to be restored, you don't have to. He wants people who want him. And look down here, discern the deceptions. So here's another hour-long program with two people talking about deceptions. So we're living in an age of high technology. We're able to find out information so easily. We're able to share information. And again, it's going to be hard. I haven't really found anybody to share this information. I haven't even heard anybody talk about, hey, where's the salvation plan for the devil? Here's another super deep point that I've found very, very helpful. I've known it for a long time. I've kind of gone away from it, but you hear some very, very talented speaker up there, very confident and bold, saying all this stuff, like maybe going through this part and saying, well, all this here in the Old Testament, this applies to you. Well, I don't think so. I've come to learn that, we can learn from, like right here, it says there are two key themes here we're playing with first. So two key themes. I think the right division, you learn where God is talking to us today, us Gentiles in 2025. And we have to discern between what applies to us today and what happened in the past. And here's my big takeaway from all this. It seems to me so right here, condemning unrepentant hostility. So could God be talking? Obviously, he's talking to these Edomites or whoever he's talking to. I didn't listen to this whole thing. Like, look at this part right here. This is all, you can email him and get all these talking points. God's redemptive plan includes reconciling divisions and establishing a unified people under his righteous reign. So right there tells me a lot of the backstory of why God created mankind, that he's multitasking, he's dealing with fallen angels, he's dealing with loyal angels, and he created us as jurors with no information in our brain. We learn the difference between good and evil, and then we're going to help him out on Judgment Day, stand up for him and say, yeah, everything he did was true and correct. So anyhow, what's really wild to me, and I've been learning about my personality, I love looking at the long run, the overarching themes and the moral of the story, connecting the dots. That's what my personality is all about. I look toward the future. I'm not a people person. I'm interested in the how and the why. So I'm interested in you know, why did God create mankind if it seems to be such a mess? But if you look at it, like, he's talking to two people here. He's multitasking. There's a lot of stuff that happened before we got here on Earth. So he's using all these scenarios of governments and rulership and righteousness. And he's covering these concepts of iniquity hidden in your heart. So supposedly, the Calvinists just love talking about iniquity, and you're a dirty, rotten sinner, and you don't even have enough oomph to reach up to God. God has to reach down to you and then put faith in your heart. And then it's like the old scenario of Fred Flintstone and his wife. He finds some girl over there and beats her over the head with a big stick, says, "Come on with me, woman. You're coming with me whether you like it or not." And he, of course, has the ability to have a harem, so he goes around beating all these other women, saying, "You're coming with me whether you like it or not." And then there's some women that probably say, "Hey, I want to come with you." And no, I'm not going to pick you. You're not. I mean, Calvinism is like the craziest. And I asked God, what's the deal with this? And here's a scenario. Who would propagate such an idea? Could it be Satan? Like that guy from the church lady, SNL, a church lady. Could it be Satan? Yeah. He's propagating it through all these Calvinistic churches. He's saying this idea, and the Calvinists are propagating it, meaning they're pushing it all out as far and wide as they can. Some crazy reason they say that God didn't die for everybody. So who is sort of in that camp? You hear, I asked a pastor once, and he said, well, a question, and he just comes up with this off-the-ball answer. Well, Christ didn't die for the devil. So if you get I'm kind of scatterbrained. Hopefully, if you got these questions, this is going to resonate with you. But if Christ died for all of us, and he's a God of love, did he ever have a plan of salvation for Satan to bring him back? Because look at this. God's redemptive plan includes reconciling divisions and establishing a unified people under his righteous reign. So could this have applied? And I think it does. It's kind of obvious. That's another part of my personality. I see so many things that are obvious that I lose patience. It's like evolution. It's so obvious that evolution could never happen. Yeah, sure. There's a couple things with their birds' beaks growing a little longer or their color changing, but every single species reproduces after its own kind. There's no transitional form. There's no missing link, like the missing link between a monkey and a man. Of course, people trying to make God look bad or not have to listen to God or come under this establishing reconciling divisions. I mean, I can go on and on and on about this. I want to try to state that it would seem that God is talking to the devil, trying to get him to come to his senses, and he's talking to the mankind. Today, God is talking to us through Romans, through Philemon. Everything that Paul has written about can apply to us pretty much 100%. I'm going to say 95% to us. It's really fun trying to figure it out, like what's the deal with baptism, and do I have to speak in tongues to be born again, like a bunch of people will say. My poor friend is going through that right now, Well, if I don't speak in tongues, I could have bought a Kia, should have bought a Honda, all this faking, trying to fake speaking in tongues. So anyhow, there's a lot of stuff that applies today that are found in Romans through Philemon. We can learn from all the books before that. We can learn from the books after that, but we're in a dispensation, a time where God is letting us have the most easy path to salvation ever. We don't have to do all the rituals that the Jews did way back when, and we don't have to endure to the end, which is going to be another dispensation when the tribulation comes upon the earth. And the first part of the tribulation is going to be beautiful. Everybody is going to probably have plenty of money and all sorts of creativity, but it's going to go haywire. And it's all because of God using this whole story plan. God's redemptive plan includes reconciling divisions and establishing a unified people under his righteous reign. So that's the big conflict of living on earth, is trying to live as a unified people, but it will never happen until we're underneath his righteous reign. He's letting us see all the problems of human rulers because they are influenced by nefarious forces. And my name, my 4D philosophy, everybody knows there's like 3 dimensions. A lot of scientists don't believe, which I believe the 4th dimension is the spiritual dimension. So trying to keep it easy. 3 dimensions plus the spiritual dimensions. And once you if you try to figure out everything with those 2 parameters, because you'll never figure it out with just 3 dimensions. We have a spiritual dimension. And I admire Elon Musk. Elon. He wants to understand the universe with knowledge. And there is some truth to the fact that we have to want to know, and it's really hard to know on our own without God's help. We're like a child that needs to learn, be told how to drive a stick shift. It's probably kind of a silly story, but let's say a 3-year-old could get into a car and reach the gas pedal, and if he wasn't shown somehow or watched or seen something, learned, he'd never be able to drive a stick shift, a Lamborghini or something. Can't even get the thing into gear. So we need to be taught, and there's a lot of teaching that will try to obfuscate, like limited atonement with the Calvinists, saying that Christ didn't die for everybody. And that comes from a nefarious thought that the devils would propagate, that, yeah, Christ did not die for the devils, but what if the devils were told, you're going to have to die for yourself? Death was never around before they tried to take over, and who knows why they tried to take over. Well, it says why. The cause of their fall was because of their pride in their knowledge, because Lucifer was the smartest creature. He was the most beautiful creature, so his knowledge, his beauty. And I guess because of what God had given him as far as responsibility. So he was probably strutting around up there saying, look at me, look what I can do. And then he wanted all the accolades for his talents, just like some musicians get all, getting fights, rock and rollers, lots of ego with rock and rollers, musicians up on stage. So the devil's up there wanting everybody to give him the glory and the credit, and that was his downfall, especially when, for some reason, he thought he could possibly take over the throne. He's saying, oh, I just want to be like you, God. I want to join you up on the sides of the north. Well, yeah, you give a guy an inch and then he takes a mile. He gets up there and then says, oh, well, now that I'm up here, see you later. We don't need you anymore, God. We've got me and all my talents and my smarts, and I'm going to outsmart you. I think I can outsmart you. So if God loves a challenge, which seems like he does, he created all us different cats he's trying to herd all throughout the ages, 100 billion people supposedly by the time this all ends. 100 billion cats he's got to, herd, corral, keep in line, try to keep them in a nice group. But anyhow, every day I'm seeing this same scenario of, God's got obviously a loving God that doesn't like to lose things. And he's going to lose his most talented, creative, beautiful creature he ever created. And he's going to let him go. But not to be without a moral of the story. I was a Boy Scout, and I read the Boy Scout magazine. They always had a story at the end of the whole magazine with, they'd have a moral of the story. And it seems that you can really cut off your nose to spite your face and not give in, or it seems like God is giving Satan this 12,500 year time period, or whatever it's going to be here. Look at all the scenarios where the devil is overhearing or listening or trying to butt in, trying to make himself look good. I could go on and on. Every day I get more little bits and pieces. And I know if I write a book, nobody's going to read it. Out of all the people that are interested in this topic about God's goodness, sure, people and scientists can say, well, if God is good, why does he allow evil? Well, he's allowing evil because of he's the ultimate content creator. He can do whatever he wants to do, and entertainment is full of conflict. So if you want to be his friend, he wants to be your friend. And if you start down that path, if you're a people person, he'll guide you that way. If you're if an engineer, I'm an engineer. I like to know how and why. I'm not a people person. He'll guide you down books to read. He'll show you spots where other people have gone wrong so we can learn from the misfortunes of others. I'm thinking of the Rosicrucians for some reason, which seem to have gone down the wrong path, although they're trying to be religious or somewhat spiritual. And I could go on and on. So anyhow, if God's redemptive plan includes reconciling divisions and establishing a unified people under his righteous reign, this is what he's doing with the big thing that happened
And so there are two
in heaven.
key themes here that we're playing with. First, God's power to transform both land and hearts emerges powerfully in Ezekiel chapter.
So believe me, everything's going to work out fine in the end, and it works out a lot better when you let yourself be open to reconciliation with God. And it may kind of be silly, but keep tuning in. I'm going to talk about, why Christ had to die, and it's not the simple little silly little thing. It's a very strategic, very in-depth, because it doesn't make sense to me why God chose to create something all messed up. You don't create a car all messed up, but it sure is cool to remodel a 55 Chevy and get it running perfectly again, and maybe make it better than it was before. So I'm going to leave it with that. Thanks for listening all the way to the end. Tune in. I love talking about this stuff. Doesn't seem like many people are interested. And if you're that one person, I do have one person who appreciates my videos, and I really am motivated. It's amazing. There's one or two people that no matter what kind of video I make, they give me a little thumbs up. So I'm dying to meet you someday. So thanks again. Check back. I might just touch on one of the subjects that you wonder about, and you cannot find it on Through the Bible radio, Calvary Chapel's call-in show where you ask the questions, and because they won't take the question or they don't know how to answer it.